Aloha Aina, Ano Ai, Velina Kako. Welcome to Free Hawaii News, brought to you by the Koani Foundation, presenting Hawaiian perspectives on a broad range of topics and issues affecting the Hawaiian Islands, the Pacific, and the world. Your hosts for Free Hawaii News are Leon Kaulahau-Siu, musician, composer, diplomat, and political analyst, and Hinaleimoana Wong, Kumu filmmaker, cultural and Hawaiian language preservationist, and community leader. And now, Free Hawaii News.
Ano ai me ke aloha ia kākoa paoloa e ko Hawaii nei pai aina puni mahalo anui ko kākou hui ana o wau no keia o kumuhina.
Aloha, and my name is Leon Kaulahau-Siu, and we welcome you to this episode of Free Hawaii News.
Last month, here on Free Hawaii News, we reported on the Lahaina Community Land Trust, which was created right after the devastating fires in Lahaina and West Maui in August of 2023. The Lahaina Community Land Trust is dedicated to keeping Lahaina lands in Lahaina hands. In other words, keeping disaster capitalists and foreign speculators from getting control of properties that are now vacant due to the fires. Since our report last month, the Lahaina Community Land Trust has bought its very first property from a Lahaina couple whose home was destroyed in the fire and who choose to sell the land where their home once stood to the trust. For more information, we go now to Lahaina, where Lahaina Community Land Trust Chief Operations Officer Carolyn Aueloa is standing by. Aloha, Carolyn.
Aloha, Hina. Thank you again so much for having us on the show. I'm delighted to be here with you today.
Carolyn, tell us, where exactly are you right now?
I am calling in here today from 1651 Lokia Street. This is our first aina that the Lahaina Community Land Trust has managed to secure and commit to protection for the benefit of the Lahaina community in perpetuity. I'm so excited to share this moment with you. We just had our blessing here last week, and this is a super special area of Lahaina in the Ahupua'a of Wahikuli. I grew up with many classmates that lived in this neighborhood. My auntie lived just a few streets down. Spent many long afternoons of my childhood there with her. This is 1651 Lokia. This property we purchased from the Kimball Ohana. Rick and his wife, Judy Kimball, they lived here for over 20 years, raised their children here. And after the fire, they made the decision to go out and move to the mainland with their adult children, who call that place home now. And so he reached out to us when he heard that we started the Lahaina Community Land Trust, and he inquired about how he could work with us to ensure that this land could be protected for the benefit of the community. And so it's a wonderful parcel, about 10,000 square feet. It will allow us to build a main house and two ohana units. So we have big dreams of housing a multi-generational family here someday, soon. We already have a design team that are working on some designs. This is with a design team that's working on sustainable building methods. We are working through some of the early designs and plans in order to have something ready to submit to the planning department and hopefully pull some permits later this year and get some construction going. But it's super exciting. This property was home to a 3-bedroom house, I believe, that the Kimballs again occupied for over 20 years. One of our community partners came to the blessing, and with tears in her eyes, she just was so happy that this was a property that we were able to secure because she had many fond memories here. One of the Kimball's daughters was her best friend growing up. She spent endless hours here, and she would convey to us how this property, it was like magical, she said. She remembers the yard. Uncle Rick just took such good care of it, and she had many fond memories of this place. And so Yeah, we're there with her, sharing in her joy that this will be a property that we'll be able to protect and keep for the Lahaina community for generations to come.
Congratulations on securing your very first property. Can you please tell us how you were able to do that?
When Uncle Rick Kimball gave us a call, he had heard that we started a land trust. He was very familiar with what a community land trust is, and it was their desire to really mahalo and malama this community. The more he shared with us that the more he learned about Hawaii's history and the surreptitious loss of land, particularly by the Hawaiian community, the more and more he really felt like the land belonged to the people, and it didn't really belong to them anyway, was I think what he put in his email. And so we were just very blessed to be able to work with him. We made him a very fair offer, which he graciously accepted, and we were able to sign the purchase contract on the anniversary of the fire, and we closed escrow about a month later, and Lahaina Community Land Trust is officially landowners, thanks to the cooperation of and the aloha of the Kimball family for Lahaina. And so we are always going to be very very grateful to them for making this choice for this place and for this people, and we're so proud that this is our first demonstration of what this will be for our community.
What is a land trust and how does it function?
A community land trust is typically a nonprofit organization organized by a community, and our sole purpose is to secure property and protect it in perpetuity for the highest and best use of the community. So for the Lahaina Community Land Trust, we have three objectives. The first being affordable housing. The second, we have a program for open space, for cultural or environmental protection. And then our third program is looking at acquiring commercial properties in order that we can secure that on the behalf of the community and use it to make business opportunities for our local community members, to pursue business ventures that are in line with the community's values.
What are your plans for this property?
The Lahaina Community Land Trust plan for this particular property is we will build a home. This property is zoned to allow for a main house and 2 ohana units. And so we are working with a sustainable development design team to design a home that's exactly that, a main house and 2 ADUs. Our vision, our dream, our goal is that a Lahaina family, a multi-generational Lahaina family, will be able to buy this home and make it their home, for the benefit of their family for as long as they choose.
What would you say you want to achieve with the Lahaina Community Land Trust?
The Lahaina Community Land Trust really envisions a future where our community is not at risk of displacement anymore by the economic forces of gentrification and capitalistic forces that drive real estate markets that have been really pushing our people out of here for a long time now. Our future vision is one that has housing stability and security. We are doing everything we can to keep as many of our local landowners home on their aina, and through this disaster and all this recovery. And we hope that they will stay committed to this place for future generations. We hope that if they ever choose to sell, we are one option, or that they would choose to sell to another Lahaina community member, in order to really keep this place special.
If the Lahaina Community Land Trust acts as a steward of the land, how is that different from being a landowner?
Land stewardship and land ownership, they're interrelated, but to me, the difference between stewardship and ownership is relationship. With stewardship, it's caring for and malama, that concept of malama for this aina. Ownership to me is more of a legal term. It connotates a owning and a possibility of in the owning, the possibility for selling for benefit. For the Lahaina Community Land Trust, again, once the land is protected by the land trust, it'll never ever be sold again. So it takes that out of the equation, and it just creates and holds a space in perpetuity for relationship with these places by the community.
Explain to us how permanently affordable housing can be built on the lands you acquire.
Let's just take this property as an example. the land trust is going to work together with our local partners, our builders, and we're going to build a beautiful home here. We will incorporate our lottery system in order to select a homeowner. The homeowner will be able to buy just the home, not the land, just the home. And we will make the home available at an affordable price for what we know is affordable for this community. And so it's permanently affordable because that family that will acquire, they'll get a traditional mortgage. There are mortgage lenders that will lend on leased property. They'll get a traditional mortgage. They will acquire the home at an affordable price. And in doing so, they're also committing and accepting what we call managed appreciation or managed equity. So the home will appreciate at a fixed rate for as long as they own it. So far, based on the analysis that we've done, we're trying to create a appreciation rate that kind of tracks with increasing wage growth. And so we've arrived at a number of about 1.5%. And so our initial homes, that's what they'll be sold with, is an agreed to 1.5% appreciation rate. And the home will appreciate at that rate for as long as they own it. So in the future, let's say in 20 years, this first homeowners, they've lived here, it's been a great life, and for whatever reason, they are wanting to make this home, sell this home, make it available to another Lahaina community member, and move into the next chapter of their lives. They'll be able to do that, and we will work with them. They will put the home on the market, but it will be only available to people that meet the criteria of the Lahaina Community Land Trust, which basically means they're good. It can be sold to folks of the Lahaina community, and it can be sold only at the maximum price of their original purchase price plus that managed equity for as long as they've owned it. So I don't have the math right in front of me. It's going to depend on what the original sale price of the home is, but we could make some assumptions. We could say, let's say the house that we build here, we can sell it for maybe $450,000, and they sell it after 20 years. You could do the math and figure out what it could be sold for in 20 years would still be within reach and affordable to the community members at that time.
Will families be able to pass ownership of their homes down to the next generations?
Absolutely. Whatever family might acquire the home that we build here on this, 1651 Lokia, they will absolutely have the ability to pass it on to their children if that's what they choose. And their children can choose to pass it on to their children, and it can go on and on like that for generations. It's really going to be up to the homeowner and whatever choices they make. Our leases will be inheritable. They will be renewable. It is never going to be our goal to displace a family, especially one that's been on their land for a long, long time. We have the community land trust model includes one where the community land trust is in a relationship with the homeowner, and we have regular check-ins annually at least, where we just check in, make sure how's the family doing, how's it going, keeping up with their mortgage and their insurance and anything else like financially. We don't micromanage any of it, but we're there in a support capacity. So if there's any kind of pilikia, if there's any kind of a problem, we're able to get ahead of it. And this is a proven model that's worked across the country. In fact, across the country, CLTs have the lowest rate of foreclosures because of this type of relationship, because of the type of assistance and counseling that often comes with as a part of the relationship between homeowners and their community land trust. And so in a community, that's what you do, right? It's a kako thing, and we work together, and their success is our success. And so we're going to be doing everything we can to make sure that if they have any kind of pilikia or any kind of challenges, that we're helping them find the resources to overcome those, or doing anything that might be needed in order to ensure that they never lose their home, and that it can be a home for future generations for as long as they choose.
How can someone help support or even sell you their land so that the Lahaina Community Land Trust grows?
People can support the Lahaina Community Land Trust by providing donations. We have a donation portal on our website. We appreciate every donation, no matter what size. But those that want to stand by us in that way, every acquisition, we need funding to finance. We're very fortunate that the County of Maui has believed in us and seen our vision and come alongside us in a really meaningful way. Thank you to all of our community partners that came out and testified on our behalf. We need support like that. And then for families that are thinking that, this might be the appropriate future for Aina, they might be considering selling, they just need to reach out. They just need to reach out. We would love to talk story with them. We try to make sure that families are not selling from a place of distress. And so if there's anything we can do to help them not feel forced to sell, we do that first. But if they've already made up their mind for whatever reasons they might have, and moving on is in their best interest, then we want to begin that conversation, and we'll work with them to evaluate the market, the value of the property, and try to offer them a very, very fair and reasonable offer. We aren't in the business of lowballing anyone. We understand the value of Aina. We understand that families that maybe are choosing to move on have a lot invested in their place. And so we really recognize that. Of course, if families don't need that and they want to donate their land to us, we are very grateful, but we understand that that's not always a reality, and that's not the type of model we're setting up to rely on. But we have already received a very generous donation from another Lahaina community member who has decided that when her time comes, she wants her home to come into Lahaina Community Land Trust. And so she wrote us into her will. And that just happened. That's kind of hot off the press. We're very grateful to Auntie Nell and for her generous decision. But, as she told us, she spent the best part of her life here and she doesn't have any children. And her choice was that she wanted to give back to this place in a way that would be perpetual. And so as she learned about the Lahaina Community Land Trust, and in fact, she was inspired by the Kimballs and their decision to sell to us. She reached out and she said, I would like to leave my property to you. And so we were so humbled and so grateful to her for her choice. And we worked with her, our lawyer worked with her lawyer, and they got all the paperwork done. And we hope to have Auntie Nell as a part of our community for as long as possible. But she's in that winter season of her life, and she made that decision for her, and she feels very good about it. And so that's another way. But anyone that is even wants to talk story, our number is 830-LCLT, 808-830-LCLT. I believe that's correct. And we're always available. Reach out to us through our website, reach out to us through the phone. It'll just start out really as a conversation. We'll never pressure anyone to sell, but we are an option that we want people to understand. And so we do a lot of education up front, and we're more than happy to answer any questions or help people, what if this or that, and give everyone all the information that they might need in order to make an informed decision. But the decision really still is theirs.
No laila, mahalo anui ya oi Carolyn, mahalo anui ya oi me kau mauhana.
A U.S. military report released last November blames the fuel contamination of Pearl Harbor's drinking water on the U.S. Navy's mismanagement at the Red Hill Fuel Depot, as well as the U.S. Navy's leaders' failures to prepare for leaks. In the report, the U.S. Department of Defense Inspector General found U.S. military leaders lacked operations and maintenance programs. They were not prepared to prevent or respond to fuel leaks. They also were not trained on their own emergency response plan intended to protect the nearby water well. As a result, the U.S. Navy contaminated a water system used by more than 90,000 people living and working around Pearl Harbor-Hickam area. So far, disaster response and subsequent efforts to close Red Hill has cost taxpayers more than $2 billion. To let us know more, we have with us today Oahu Water Protector Lima DeCosta. Aloha, Lima.
Aloha, Leon. Mahalo for having us here today.
Oh, mahalo for coming.
Mahalo.
And I know you've been working on this for a long time, and so we're really glad to have you here. Now, it's been over 3 years since the spill, so can you bring us up to date about where things stand now?
Well, luckily, we have a great reporting out of Civil Beat, so mahalo to Christina Jedra and Civil Beat for the reporting. And as you know, the Inspector General found numerous issues. I think 38 recommendations were made. And they found, as you indicated, that the Navy not only prepared to train properly to be able to respond to any kind of leaks, but they also mismanaged the facility because they installed piping that was not appropriate. So instead of the appropriate type of piping that was required or should have been used, someone decided that using, I guess, PVC piping was appropriate.
For fuel.
For fuel, exactly. So that is a problem. And
Yes.
They actually found that one particular rear admiral, and I don't want to butcher his name, but generally, in general, what Admiral Del Toro said is that this one rear admiral failed to properly investigate a May 2021 leak, and because he didn't properly prepare, and because they continued to testify under oath that everything was good and there was no problem, we didn't have the opportunity to probably know what was happening.
Now, there were leaks even prior to
Prior to that,
2021.
prior.
And going back a number of years, and it seems to me like they would have had some kind of way to prepare for it. So
They didn't. They didn't have anything in place, and from what I understand, once they set everything up, it took so many people to build the facility to get everything up and running. But once they set everything up, I think that the facility was under the management on a regular basis of maybe 1 or 2 people. It wasn't properly maintained. I mean, when we're talking about the water system for so many individuals, it's not just as in individual residences, but we're talking about businesses that are impacted in schools as well. That's an issue.
yes, yes. So since the closure of the facility and the supposed cleanup, can you give us an update as to what your concerns are still?
They actually are at the removal of the sludge and any residual fuel that's still in the tank. And right now they're saying that it's not going to be until 2027 where this is all cleaned up.
Completed? I see.
So we still
And
have a couple years to go.
so are they saying that will be totally decontaminated that way?
I don't think they can say that, and the reason why they can't say that is because part of this process involves the use of PFAS, or I guess the AFFF, and it's firefighting foam.
Oh,
and
yes.
because of the problems that they had with the PVC pipes, firefighting foam actually got into the aquifer and perhaps even into the Aina, and those are considered forever chemicals. So if we're dealing with something called forever chemicals, it's difficult to see how the military will ever be able to completely remediate it. More so, it seems like they're going to expect us to live with it. And as a matter of fact, when I was working at the Capitol a couple sessions ago, when this was all still in the height and before they started the closure and the fuel removal, I don't know if you recall, but during that period of time, there were individuals that were concerned about what information we were getting from the military, were we getting all of the correct information. And it seems like there was information that was not shared with us. It seems like the military was not as transparent as it could have been or should have been. And now here we are a couple of years later, still have a lot of unanswered questions and still waiting for somebody in the Navy to take it as seriously as we do. What happens to one of us happens to all of us, especially on an island like this, right? So we want to make sure that we can take care of all of our spaces. And under the Ahupua'a system, it's a little there's a little eha when people go over the border. So maybe people will adopt their own community and create little community initiatives for each of the ahupua'a so that they can help to monitor those regions and then support the greater initiatives. Yeah, work together collaboratively.
Is there still residual contamination in the at Pearl Harbor, for instance?
Well,
I mean, are they still having to watch what they drink?
they say no, and the Department of Health says no. But the families themselves are reporting different things. And it's not just at Pearl Harbor. Families in Kapolina, and Kapolina is at a remote area, right? So there are families that are either on a water supply, Navy water supply, or have been on the Navy water supply that actually are still having problems.
I really appreciate your bringing us up to date. So we'll keep an eye on things.
Yes, thank you.
And hope that, that we actually proceed in a way that will actually better Hawaii.
Yes, please watch us at the legislature this year, because I think that's where a lot of the action is going to be happening. Yeah, thank you.
Mahalo, Ilima.
You're watching Free Hawaii News, giving you the Kanaka perspective on issues in Hawaii.
We come now to a segment in Free Hawaii News that we like to call the Pacific Way. In the Pacific Way, we talk about what it's like to be from the Pacific Islands, that there's a different style, a different way, a different attitude of how we interact with one another and how we approach things.
I believe the word that comes to mind for me in English is being diplomatic. And the sense of diplomacy I see where, especially in and amongst our leaders. Now, whether or not the people are leading at a place in our community where we may personally want, for example, when we talk about Hawaii state leaders, city and county leaders, although it's not monarchy leadership, it's still leadership at some level. And I think it's so important to be a leader that shows diplomacy. Now, diplomacy can be found not only in the word aloha, but also mentioned elsewhere in this evening's broadcast is the word loko maikai. Diplomacy means that you understand that there are highly likely moments where you may have differing opinions, you may have different lifestyles, you may have just different ways. And being a diplomat means that you consider, especially if you're a leader, you don't have to please everyone, and you should be yourself, but you should show yourself in a way that says to everybody you're conscious of not just trying to be so true to yourself that you don't care about others' thoughts, feelings, or opinions. And I think that that's something that's really missing, because in our Pacific way, I have seen, like you, I travel the world and I go to different countries in the Pacific, and I have seen where it is very customary to see a Pacific Island leader be diplomatic. They demonstrate a level of decorum, they demonstrate a level of comprehension and consciousness, awareness that their words could be absolutely inclusive and acknowledging of the next person, or utterly incendiary. And that goes for people's ways. And I just really think that many of our modern day leaders, all too often, they're not ethnically Hawaiian, but it's important that our people keep this in mind. Don't you think so?
Yes, I think so. And diplomacy, that's the key word. I often get asked, because actually that's my role, I'm a diplomat for the Hawaiian Kingdom. And people ask me, well, what are you doing out there? Are you arguing with people about what happened in Hawaii? I said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm there to inform them, and also to, not just to inform them in a harsh way, but actually I'm there to make friends. There are two ways you can approach a situation like what happened in Hawaii. One is through the legal channels, where you actually create an adversarial situation, where you bring somebody else to court and you're arguing over legal points. But the more beneficial and the more effective way is through diplomacy, where you make friends and you work out and you talk out through the things that maybe you might disagree upon, and you find a place of common ground and meeting with respect for one another. And I think that gets you a lot more. It takes a little bit longer, takes more effort, but that is the way that we've been doing. So I've been actually doing this job of diplomacy for over 24 years. And And I learned fairly early on that's where we need to go. We can't argue our way into freeing Hawaii. We really have to make friends and have people support us, and we're supposed to support them too.
Yes.
So one of the things that I've gotten involved in lots of different issues around the world because it was important to other countries. And it's important to us as well. If it's important to them, it's important to us. So, so diplomacy, I think, is the proper word, yeah.
Absolutely. And it doesn't take someone to be in a high political position. It doesn't take someone to be in a position that has power over many in our islands, our jurisdiction. Diplomacy and being an ambassador at whatever level that it can mean for the individual, it means that we should be conscious about the fact that there's only so many of us Kanaka left. And the culture, the language, and the history of us as Kanaka is upon each and every one of us to be someone who can carry this. Some of us will carry much greater weight, and some of us simply just need to be.
Now, there's something that reminded me of what you were just saying. Hawaiians have a special, what I call an anointing. There's something about us that wherever we go in the world, we find favor in the eyes of the people who are there. Once they learn you're from Hawaii, all of a sudden their countenance changes and they become very dreamy-eyed practically, and they say, I always wanted to go to your country, and it seems like such a beautiful place. And many others say, I've been there, I love it, I want to return. So Hawaii itself has a spirit upon us in which people sense that aloha, and sense that this way we can affect the world. And I think we also have a responsibility for reflecting that, of course, within our own community, for living it in our community as the Pacific way, or the Hawaiian way, or the Aloha way.
The Hawaiian way, Aloha way, Pacific way. What's most important is that each and every one of us understand it's our rightful way. I remember many kupuna who were wonderful examples of being people who are diplomatic and reflecting being a person who is loko maikai. A person who is good-hearted, who is conscious and conscientious, and can avail themselves to being diplomatic. Where, I guess in a way, it's coming across not trying to be deliberately abrasive, but knowing that there's always going to be difference, there's always going to be something about a person or a moment that may be opposite of us. But our people are known to be a gracious people. And I think that sometimes in this current life, we stray so far from it. So wouldn't you say that we get to encourage people in this part of the show to really consider what is the Pacific way? I think that that's one of the greatest things that we can encourage our viewers out there in the world to do. Please, everybody, won't you join Leon and myself and take it upon your shoulder to awamo des kuleana. Be kind, be gracious, and be diplomatic in what we do. So that way, we promote a greater sense of what it means to be Hawaiian in a Hawaiian manner, and to have that life of aloha, and to be in the Pacific way. Recently, Huli, the Hawaiian Unity and Liberation Institute here on Oahu, along with the Native Alliance organizers, held a first ever Kia'i community organizing meeting. Huli provides nonviolent, direct action training, community organizing, and action support to Hawaii, as well as Hawaiian social justice issues. The purpose of last month's meeting was to uplift, support, and empower the Lahui, or Hawaiian nation, with organizing skills and knowledge. To tell us more, we go now to Pearl City, where Huli co-founder Andre Perez is standing by. Aloha, Andre.
Aloha, Hina, my old friend and co-worker and fellow sister resistor. Good to see you.
Andre, what can you tell us about last month's Kia'i community organizing meeting, and how did it go?
Last month, Huli, we held our first Kia'i organizers training camp. It was about 3 years in the making, and we wanted to bring organizing training to Hawaii because we recognize the importance and value and high impact of community organizing. So last month in December 2024, we held a Kia'i organizers training camp, a 3-day camp in partnership with Native Organizers Alliance, which is a Native American centered org that does organizing training across the US. So they helped us kind of uplift our training. And the goal was to bring training for organizing that's grounded in Hawaiian values and grounded in Hawaiian mo'olelo, stories and lessons from struggle from the beginnings of the Hawaiian movement.
What was the purpose of the meeting?
The purpose of it was to really create our own capacity to train our own people here in Hawaii, so we don't have to fly to the continent, to the US, to find these kinds of trainings. We're developing our own capacity, and it's really the whole reason why we created Huli was to nurture and create our own training capacity for our community.
Given that Kia'i is the Hawaiian term for protecting or being a protector or guardian, what effect will teaching this information and skills have for people who feel compelled to protect Hawaii, our people, and our Hawaiian culture?
The connection to Kia'i, or defenders, protectors, this training should really enhance the ability, the capacity, and the impact of Kia'i protectors and organizers. So we framed our training, we're calling it Kia'i Organizing, or Kia'i Organizers Camp. And the reason we're doing that is to focus on Hawaiian activism and the impact that it has. So looking back to the 70s, early 70s, and moving forward, ikawa ma mua kawa ma hope, in the Hawaiian concept of time. Hawaiians view time as we're moving forward in the future as we look to the past. So the past informs our future. That's a very important Hawaiian concept and very paramount in our work. So we're using lessons learned, mo'olelo, from stories of struggle and resistance to inform the present and the future.
The Kia'i community trainings you have planned actually have their roots in actions that earlier protectors here in Hawaii took, yes?
Yes. So our training is grounded in historical analysis and informed by previous struggle. So, not only struggle in Hawaii, but struggle in outside of Hawaii. So we look to earlier examples of organizing success, even from the 60s, what the Black Panthers did by having a 10-point political platform, kept their politics and their demands consistent. That has informed our work. And moving forward, American Indian movement, there were strong ties between Hawaii and the American Indian movement in the late 70s and 80s through people like Kauaipuna Pregene, Kekuni Blaisdell. And so we've connected in a strong way with Lakota community out of South Dakota because we went to Standing Rock. And we went to Standing Rock in 2015 for 2 reasons: to learn about struggle and resistance in large occupation settings, and also to support them in solidarity and to keep that bridge of support and relationship and solidarity that was established by the generation before us. In 2015, I was already immersed in nonviolent direct action training. So we went to Standing Rock, me and my partner Camille, to represent Huli and show solidarity and support on a first trip. And we went to support them and to learn about large-scale occupations. Later, I got invited to come back about a month later to help be the nonviolent direct action trainer for the Standing Rock Ochete Shakowin camp, to train all the newcomers in the basic principles of nonviolent direct action, discipline, and behavior. I spent a total of 5 weeks at Standing Rock, and we just built relationships there and learned about how to resist in peaceful, nonviolent ways, and how to have high impact in that resistance through visuals, through strategy and tactics, and through art, and through creating our own media narratives. After I was there for 5 weeks, I built relationships that have really blossomed into lifelong friendships, and a lot of the support that we have now is really connected to relationships that were built at Standing Rock. And I want to say this, anybody who went to Standing Rock was there to protect water from a pipeline, drinking water. The whole movement was grounded in a slogan of water is life. And the mainstream media will show you Standing Rock with a lot of police violence, and a lot of people got injured and hurt. But that violence was one way. It was from the police towards the people, the citizens. The discipline and nonviolence that was demonstrated there was inspiring for us, and that directly informed our Mauna Kea occupation.
Why are these skills necessary in today's Hawaii?
These skills are really important in Hawaii and everywhere. One, people think that activism is just a bunch of rabble-rousers, people screaming and shouting and holding signs. And maybe in some cases that's the case. But we operate from nonviolent direct action philosophy, methodology, strategy, and tactics, which is very organized. And so the whole point is to organize your approach to resistance so that you're effective and you have high impact. And so that's the driving force in training in nonviolent direct action. Like, we need people who know how to maintain discipline, who know how to engage in ways that are de-escalating and not escalating with law enforcement. We want to train our community to have media skills so that we can control our own narrative, and really nurture and culture a discipline of nonviolence, because history has shown us that nonviolent direct action is what gets the goods. It's what's been our most successful approach to winning the issues that are grounded in our cultural values: protection of water, protection of land, sacred sites, burials, iwi kupuna, etc. So, the goal is to enhance the community's capability to represent ourselves around our own issues with impact and with ways that are effective for us to have the results we want.
Would you say these skills are consistent with Hawaiian cultural practices?
Yes, I would say that the skills, that was the reason why we created our own curriculum and have it informed by Hawaiian stories of struggle and Hawaiian values. So absolutely. So our curriculum, our training is grounded in Hawaiian values around the protection of water, the relationship to Kane, the god of water, life, all forms of life, really informs how we organize and how we operate.
Is the goal to train people on each island?
Yes, absolutely. The goal is to bring our trainings to each island. We're starting on Oahu because we live on Oahu, but we have Kauai in our sites. Kauai is my home island where I grew up, my mother, my grandmother. And so, I want to go back home and uplift my community. I'm in conversation with some Kauai community members. Ultimately, our goal would be to take our organizing camp to Hawaii Island, to Maui, to Kauai, Molokai, of course, working through relationships. But yes, and then we also have, in addition to a 3-day training camp, we have like a 1-day, 6-hour introduction to Kia'i organizing as well. And we're working on it, and keep your eyes and ears open, and you'll be seeing us soon. The goal is to really, in light of the recent political administration, for Hawaii and the nation, those impacts are going to be big, and we recognize, that we cannot exist status quo. We have to adjust our work and our strategy in light of the new election. So our simple strategy is to ramp up community organizing training and build the power base at the ground level so that we can protect and defend ourselves and our communities.
How can people get involved and attend upcoming meetings?
People can get involved. I think for now, we're ramping up slowly. We've only had one training camp. But if you want to follow our Huli social medias accounts, we have an Instagram account that's Huli NVDA. And then we have a Facebook account that's just Huli, Hawaii Unity and Liberation Institute. You can look for this logo on my shirt, and we'll be making announcements there for community trainings. We do it twofold. Sometimes we'll work through community leaders who will invite people to the training, and it'll be word of mouth. And that approach is so that we can pull in, we can prioritize the people who are actually doing organizing and doing work in their community and prioritize them first. So that will be the kind of word of mouth invite. We'll also have public announcements for our introduction to organizing, where community can register and just come. It's free, and kind of get your feet wet, learn about organizing, or learn about our Kia'i organizing. And at that time, we'll be collecting information to follow up for the 3-day camp. But I would say start with following us on our socials. We're our social media accounts. We're a small org, very small org, and we don't have a ton of, outreach capacity. But utilizing social media, I think, is the best way to follow us and pay attention to the upcoming trainings. We're very careful to announce them and put them out multiple times so that the community can be aware.
No laila, mahalo anui ya oi Andre, mahalo anui kau hana nui, me kau mauhana mai kai. Mahalo, mahalo, mahalo.
Still to come on Free Hawaii News. Progress for Hawaii at the United Nations.
In 2014, I helped to organize a group of independence advocates from Hawaii, Alaska, Canada and America, First Nations, West Papua, Maluku, Rapa Nui, Kashmir, Mapuche, and other captured peoples and nations that have been denied a path for decolonization under the UN system. The organization, called the Decolonization Alliance, was based in New York. For several years, we had dialogues and interacted with members of the UN regarding the problem of our nations being excluded from accessing UN mechanisms for decolonization. The Decolonization Alliance has been in hiatus, however, since COVID. However, in our discussions, we realized that there is no avenue for decolonization because the UN itself has become a barrier. It has reduced its sacred mandate for decolonization to declarations and platitudes. The UN system is broken. It needs to be fixed before access to UN decolonization mechanisms can be accessed again. Thus, for the past 2 years, I have been working on organizing a broad effort to reform the UN's decolonization process so that it can serve the needs of those peoples and nations that are not on the existing closed list of 17 territories to be decolonized. To do so, we have formed the Working Group on Decolonization in New York, in close proximity to the UN headquarters. It is a subcommittee of the 600-member Conference of Non-Governmental Organizations, or CONGO for short. The Working Group on Decolonization will be launched in New York during the first quarter of this year. Revitalizing and opening up the scope of work for the UN Decolonization Committee will have a profound impact in captive nations being able to utilize the peaceful means to self-determination and decolonization. For us in Hawaii who have been under captivity because of a botched UN decolonization process, the statehood plebiscite of 1959, we are pursuing this internationally protected path to peacefully assert and reinstate our independence.
Next on Free Hawaii News, Kumu Hinaʻs Mana'o.
Mahalo anui ko kākou hiki ana mai I keia hapa nohoi o ka papahana. This is my portion of the program this evening where I get to share my mana'o. I get to share my thoughts with you. And this evening is a very simple takeaway. We hear the word aloha used often, and all too often, aloha we find is commodified and objectified, and to me personally, the word tends to lose the luster of its mana when people don't really know just how important a word it is and apply it to the most random of things. Aloha, in addition to this one next word, lokomaikai. Lokomaikai is a term that we Kanaka use for having a good heart, being kind, and being someone of grace. It's taken Kumu Hina many years to get to a place where I understand what having grace means. And as I reflect on many times where I perhaps was either unkind or unnecessary with the ways that I treated people. In the recent weeks, I've been faced with many a situation that required me and also reminded me how much and how important it is to not only have aloha in our heart, but to have grace in our manner and our way. Grace, the term lokomaikai, is quite simple. When we come upon people that we know either don't like us or we don't care for them, when we come upon people that we may not always agree with, or we actually might really not like them at all, if there's no need to get into a confrontation, if there's no need to even engage, sometimes the best way is to remind ourselves, and I do this often for my own personal self, I remind myself to try to have as much grace as I can. Sometimes I do have a dear friend and sister out there that will remind me that I should be mindful of this, but I've learned to try to be my own monitor. And so, my message again this evening is quite simple. E hana kākou me ka olu, e olelo kākou me ke aloha, me ka lokomaikai. Pēlā no ke ano ka noho ana o kākou Hawaii. Kākou ka Hawaii, pone a kākou e hoʻokupaʻa ma ke ano o ko kākou noho ana me ka loina ana kupuna. It's important for us to aspire to continually live in the manner that our people, when we say our ancestors, it's not just their works that they did, it's not just planting kalo or fishing or gathering, it's not just weaving or making kapa, it's not just dancing hula or chanting either. Showing kindness, being someone of grace, and being someone of generosity and good-heartedness, it does really require us in the modern times of 2025. It reminds us that we do have to be our own monitor and our own police. And in a time where there are so few of our Kanaka left here in the mainland of Hawaii, so few of us who live in the homeland, many of our people have gone away to live on the continental US, and many of our people have strayed away because of external factors and influences from outside views and culture. We endure and we do our best to prevail despite being a minor minority here in our own homeland. So once again, everyone, I encourage all of you and I support all of you to take a moment out and think not only about this term aloha, which is hello, it's goodbye, it's also love, but there's an implication of respect, an implication of dignity, and also an understanding of honor. When we have aloha for others, we may not necessarily always agree or like other people for whatever it might be, but we honor the fact that we are Kanaka, and as a minority in our own home, it's going to take all of us to be that lahui that we acknowledge as the lahui Kanaka. So, won't you join me and consider in just what simple ways each and every day we can show a kind heart, be generous, and be someone of grace. No laila, mahalo anui ya oko, mahalo.
Mahalo nui for joining us for this episode of Free Hawaii News. It's been our pleasure to have you here, and we also want to thank our guests for contributing their mana'o to this wonderful show.
Ano leila e nā mamo aloha o ka la hui. Mahalo ya oko ke ia hui ana, a hui ho kākou.
Aloha.
We hope you enjoyed this month's episode of Free Hawaii News. Mahalo for watching. There's a new show every month, so this program will air several more times this month. You can view it anytime on Olelo's on-demand site or on YouTube. See you next time. Ahui ho, aloha aina.
Free Hawaii Broadcasting Network.